so I'm Reg Local, this is Advanced and Performance Driving. Before I get into today's video, don't forget to subscribe and also go and have a look at my website, reglocal.com. See all my videos there and some information about the books and other stuff that I'm doing. Today we're going to look at acceleration sense. Now in my opinion, acceleration sense is one of the abilities that really separates a skilled road driver from the rest of the motoring public. It's a skill that very few people will ever even notice. It's a skill that can be extremely difficult to learn. It can be very satisfying to practice. It's a subtle and unobtrusive skill that you can use to really fine effect on any and every journey, and it's a skill that I doubt anyone will ever truly master. I know I haven't perfected it, and that's after nearly 30 years of driving. So to define acceleration sense, to start with, the roadcraft definition of acceleration sense is along the lines of the ability of the driver to vary the speed of the vehicle through accurate use of the accelerator to meet changing road and traffic conditions. It might just have changed slightly in the way that it's worded, but that's the principle. But I can summarise that in a much shorter sentence, and it's basically this: the accelerator works both ways. I know it sounds really simple, but to be honest, correct use of the accelerator is an absolutely key skill in advanced road driving. In terms of the accelerator working in both ways, means that it doesn't just make the car go faster when you press the accelerator, it makes the car slow down when you lift off the accelerator. Very, very simple principle, one that really does take a lot of mastering. So to be clear, I'm not just talking about how you increase the speed of the vehicle by pressing the gas pedal. Acceleration sense is far more subtle and wide-ranging than just pressing the accelerator to make the car go faster. What I'm talking about is how you use the accelerator pedal whilst you're driving along, approaching and negotiating hazards, how you use the accelerator in reaction to changing road and traffic conditions, changing speed limits, changing gradients, how you use the accelerator to maintain a following position on other vehicles. So a few things to bear in mind when we're thinking about acceleration sense. First of all is the difference between different vehicles. Vehicles can vary dramatically in their response to a lift on the accelerator. Diesels have a high compression ratio, tend to provide a bit more retardation when you lift off the accelerator than petrol engines do. A larger capacity engine will always have more retardation than a smaller capacity engine, and a lighter car will react more strongly to a lift of the throttle than a heavier car will. Cars with automatic gearboxes can sometimes be particularly difficult because you get much less retardation when you lift off the accelerator. One of the key things to bear in mind as well is that acceleration sense is not necessarily engine braking. Engine braking is a different principle really, and that to me engine braking means sort of taking a lower gear on the approach to hazard to deliberately slow the car down using the gears. Whereas acceleration sense is more subtle. It's more about lifting off the accelerator much earlier so that you can glide and roll up to hazards nice and smoothly, rather than using that harsher method of changing down to a lower gear to slow the car down. So if you need to brake, your car's fitted with some perfectly adequate brakes. Use the brakes to slow down. Acceleration sense, like I say, is more subtle. It's about approaching hazards with a gentle lift from the accelerator to roll up to hazards. Another issue with engine braking, if you're deliberately changing down to use the gears to slow the car, is that you won't display brake lights, and if you are reducing the speed of the vehicle quickly using the gears, then you're not going to be showing following vehicles that you're braking, so your brake lights won't display. So it's important that you sort of draw that definition, that defined line between engine braking and acceleration sense. And if you need to brake, don't be changing down first, use the brakes first to slow the car down. So let's look at a few practical examples of how we can apply acceleration sense on the road. First one I'm going to look at is rolling up into a following position. As we leave this 30 limit and move into a 50 limit, I'm going to accelerate gently in fourth gear to start with. Now looking at getting into a following position on the vehicles in front. without using any braking. So instead of changing up to 5th gear, I'm going to leave the car in 4th, accelerate at first, and then ease off the gas, and that'll allow me to roll into a following position on the Ford in front without having to use the brakes. So now we're nicely in a 2-second following position on the vehicle in front, and I've done that entirely without using the brakes. So here I'm in 3rd gear, not braking, just allowing the car to roll down the hill, and 3rd gear and a complete lift off the accelerator is holding us very nicely at 30 miles an hour. It's not slowing us down to 30 miles an hour, it's holding us at 30 miles an hour as we go down the hill. And then acceleration sense also comes in where we recognise that the road's going to go uphill. So right at the bottom of the dip there, I'll start to squeeze the accelerator. That means that we continue along without losing any speed. Just carefully looking at this junction and which vehicles are turning, indicators on the bike there. So some people are slow to react to uphill sections of road. They'll roll onto it and the car speed will drop off to 25 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour before they realise and then press the accelerator. But if you've got good acceleration sense, you'll recognise when you're going to need to squeeze the accelerator before you get onto the hill and before gravity starts slowing the vehicle down. So I'm just accelerating now, looking to get in a following position on the vehicle in front now. We're going to do it again, we're going to do it with acceleration sense. I'm going to leave it in 4th, catch up with the vehicle in front, and then ease off the accelerator here so that we roll into a following position without having to press the brakes. There we are in a nice 2-second following position, and I haven't had to touch the brakes. So now the skill is in maintaining that following position, and I'll do another video on following position and look at it in more detail, but ideally we're trying to maintain this following position now without having to use the brakes. So that means that we're not letting the car drop back, but we're not getting too close to the car in front either, and that means that we have to then look further ahead down the road, look at the sort of things that the car in front might start to react to, and be ready, your foot on the accelerator early, so that even if the car in front brakes, sometimes we won't need to brake because we'll have lifted off the accelerator early and used acceleration sense. Motorways are a good place to practice acceleration sense. So as you join the motorway here, I'm going to be using acceleration sense mainly to match my speed to the speed of the vehicles in lane 1. So once we've matched their speed, then we can look for a gap to move into lane 1. Then as your speed picks up on the motorway, we use acceleration sense as we approach the rear of slow moving vehicles. So we're not going to catch up with every vehicle and then brake. We're going to catch up with them and then roll into a nice following position. Now, there's a lot of nonsense talked about brakes on the motorway. I've heard people say that you shouldn't use your brakes on the motorway. That's nonsense. If you need your brakes on the motorway, I really want you to brake. What they mean by that is that you shouldn't necessarily need to brake every time you approach a slow moving vehicle or approach a junction for an exit. You should be able to moderate your speed just mostly by using the accelerator and acceleration sense. So the 3-lane stretch of motorway here, looking in the distance, just see the sign that tells us that it goes back to 2 lanes. So I'm checking the mirrors, moving back across into lane 2. And now my attention's on the white vehicle in lane 2, which is clearly going slower than I am. So the idea is we'll catch up with that vehicle, and by using acceleration sense we'll get ourselves into a following position, hopefully without having to brake. Now in 6th gear, this particular car hasn't got a lot of retardation. It's only a small engine, 1.5, and it's quite a heavy car. So I'm lifting off the accelerator now in 6th gear, and actually as I roll up behind the vehicle it moves to lane 1. So now my attention's on the next white vehicle, in lane 2. I'm also looking at which vehicles might move out into lane 2, so I'm looking for closing gaps. Brake lights on the silver car there. So I'm looking at exiting at the next exit. Try to aim to be in lane 1 by the time we're at the 300-yard marker, but at the moment I've still got a bit of progress to make. So now using acceleration sense, the left indicator on, coast across into lane 1 and then off at the exit that we want. So at no point have I used the brakes then, no point have we cussed anybody up, but we've managed to make a little bit of progress as we still approach the junction. So now I'm turning right. And here I'm using acceleration sense and the uphill, the gravity, to slow the car down. I will have some braking towards the end of the slip road, but I've lost most of the speed just using the uphill slip road and acceleration sense. So we've got the view, you can see it's clear to go. Keeping a little bit of gas on as we go around the corner on the roundabout to keep the car balanced. I'm going to keep third gear so that, unlike the car in front, I don't need to brake for the exit. So that third gear gave me that little bit of retardation, whereas the car in front was accelerating and then braking. We're doing it all just using the accelerator pedal. And we can also use acceleration sense when we're cornering. It's not always necessary to brake for every corner that you approach. We've already looked at the basic principles of cornering: position on approach, speed, gear, safe stopping rule, and how to assess the speed for each corner using various methods, but predominantly using the limit point. So on the approach to a corner, sometimes we'll look to see what the limit point's doing. At a very early stage you'll see that it's moving, and we can use acceleration sense then just to get the car to the right speed on the approach to the corner before accelerating through the corner. So on the next little section road I'm going to drive along, I'm going to try and predominantly use acceleration sense to get the speed correct for the corners. There's one or two obviously where they're tighter and you will need some brakes, but it's surprising even on some tight and twisty roads how little you need to use the brakes sometimes. Looking ahead, I can see the road bending slightly round to the right by the position of the snow poles, and in the distance a car's just popped into view showing that it's going around to the left. So I'm going to hold third gear now and just ease off the gas early. So rather than powering up to that zone of invisibility, what I'm doing is easing off the gas. We then don't have to brake, we can just roll into this crest and then see where the road goes, and that way we're at the correct speed then for the left-hander, and just apply a little bit of gas as we go around the corner. So looking ahead now, I can see the road bending all the way around to the right. There's one particular bend that's marked by chevron boards, so that's the one that's going to be sharper than the others. So all the way around this right-hander, I'm right off the gas here, and this one in particular will just need a little touch of brakes, but very gentle, and then off the brakes, maintaining third gear and accelerating through the corner. Because we had a nice open view all the way in there, we could take some off the offside as we go around the right-hander. So now I'm maintaining third gear, and I'm using that gear and acceleration sense to get the speed correct for each of these individual corners on the approach. And then once we're into the corner, we'll start applying a little bit of gas just to pull the car through. Here there's nothing stopping us from accelerating nice and firmly through this corner, offside position for the left-hander, and then back to the near side before we're anywhere near that motorcyclist. And now I'm completely off the gas now, allowing third gear just to hold us on the way to the left-hander until we've found the radius of the corner. Now looking in the distance and the road's dropping downhill, so I'm holding third gear again to keep us at the correct speed. Now we'll take a little bit of an offside position, back to the near side, and then just a touch of brakes for the left-hander. It really is just a very gentle touch. We've done most of the reduction in speed by lifting off the accelerator and letting acceleration sense hold us down. So on the way down this hill here, Again, I'm maintaining third gear. I'm not accelerating it and then braking for the corner. I'm just staying off the gas, taking the correct position, and then rolling the car into the corner using acceleration sense only to get the speed correct. Here we can see that it's quite a sharp corner, so we will need just a gentle touch of brakes, but then off the brakes, rolling the car into the corner, taking some off the offside as we go around to straighten the corner, maintain vehicle balance and take advantage of the crown camber on the road. So looking up into the distance now, see the road bending round to the right. There's been a change in road surface. That road surface is now really undulating and bumpy. Third gear, it's a nice flexible gear. Gives me acceleration when we need it, but it also allows us to slow the car down by lifting off the gas as we are doing on the approach to this crest. And then accelerating through that corner, looking up ahead to the next corner, easing off the gas early. So I'm off the gas now until I can see what the limit point's doing. Now it's starting to move, I'm back on the gas and we're applying acceleration into the corner. Now we're off the gas again until we've got a view of where the road's going. Position to the offside just to extend that view slightly. Now we can see that there's a bend to the right. Checking the mirrors to the near side and a gentle squeeze on the brakes, just a touch before easing off the brakes and accelerating gently around the corner. Not going offside here because I've got an oncoming car. So hopefully you'll be able to see now that actually we're not braking very much. I think I've only braked 3 times on the whole length of this road so far. The rest of the time I'm using the flexibility of third gear and acceleration sense to get the speed right for the corner. For this left-hander, I'm lifting off early. I'm off the gas now, straddling the white centre line for a better view. The limit point's moving, and now I'm back on the gas all the way through. Absolutely no hint of braking for that corner. For the next corner, we've got chevron boards and a more limited view. So for this one, just a squeeze of brakes. Now we're going to keep third gear as we enter the village, speed down to 30. And third gear will help us maintain 30 miles an hour on the downhill run through the village. You hear a lot of people, don't you, getting booked for speeding because they've just allowed the speed to creep up. They might have been doing 30 at the start of the speed limit, but because they've been in 4th or 5th gear, the car has then picked up speed with the gravity of the hill. Always better just to choose a slightly lower gear to hold you on the hill. And if you're off the gas, you're not using any fuel anyway these days. Cars don't use any fuel when they're coasting in gear. So it's 3 miles. So another situation where you might use acceleration sensors where you've got a lot of parked cars on either side of the road as we have here. So rather than having to brake there, I've just lifted off the accelerator in 2nd gear. 2nd gear's held me back quite nicely. And that way you can then time your approach to parked cars so that we're meeting other vehicles in the gaps. We're not having to brake at the last minute, we're certainly not having to brake and reverse. Your observations in the distance, pick out which vehicles are coming towards you, which ones we're going to have to give way to, and quite often just an early lift of the accelerator and the use of acceleration sense is a much smoother and more subtle approach to parked cars than just keeping the accelerator on and then braking while everybody sorts it out. So here I'm holding 2nd gear and it's just keeping me just below 30 miles an hour, which is more than fast enough on this little bit of road. And I'm using very, very small amounts of braking on the downhill. It's mostly just 2nd gear and acceleration sense that's keeping my speed just where it needs to be. And then a squeeze on the accelerator as we get to the uphill section, right at the bottom of the hill, so we're not losing any speed. We're just maintaining the speed. Watching this child on this bike. So that's acceleration sense. It's a very subtle skill. It's a small part of the advanced driving jigsaw, if you like. It fits in nicely with a lot of the other skills we talk about. It fits in at that speed phase of the 5 phases. so that on the approach to a hazard you wouldn't always necessarily need to brake. Quite often acceleration sense is more than enough to get your speed right for a hazard. It's one you can practice every time you get in the car. So if you're on the motorway and you're approaching some slow moving vehicles, try lifting off early, rolling up to the back of them rather than keeping the accelerator pressed and then braking. And if you're driving along a road where there's a few bends, again, just try lifting off rather than driving right up to the bend and then braking and changing down. Try lifting off the accelerator early, moderating your speed using the accelerator pedal, and then putting that speed back on as you accelerate into and through and then out of the corner. But that's it from me for now. I'm Reg Local. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Have a look at the website, reglocal.com, and we'll see you next time.